Welcome to the year 1975 of Soviet space program. In this episode, we will be continuing the struggles with station pressurization, return with crew to lunar orbit, and send several probes towards the asteroid belt and beyond. Starting off the year strong, a Progress resupply is launched on the 6th of January, supporting the crew currently living aboard the Mir station. As previously mentioned, the early stations program has already been completed, meaning that operating the Mir does not serve any scientific purpose, nor are we receiving any additional funding to keep the station active and occupied. This technically will slow us down with other program progression, since we are diverting roughly 150,000 funds per year for station upkeep. But the idea here is that keeping these operations active will bolster Soviet prestige and maintain the global perspective of being a leader in the human exploration of space. After docking with the Mir, Grigory and Angelica perform an inventory check of supplies. They confirm they will be able to eat, drink, and breathe for the next 8 months. However, it seems that the recurring issue of pressurization is still nipping at our heels, as the station is reading a bit short. The next resupply will have to be pulled in a few months early, and will need to be packaged with a tad more nitrogen. It's time for a stop in the admin building. Now having 11 program slots and early Earth space stations being completed, we can move on to the next set of programs. To be strategic with our choices, we need to pay attention to the funds paid out annually, rather than the total program funding. Outer Planet Flyby pays $300K annually on FAST, and would require an additional 3,600 confidence to tack on another 100,000 to the funding. On the other hand, asteroid exploration pays an extra 150,000 for a lower confidence cost of 3,200. Though it is worth noting, the program duration is much shorter than the outer flybys, which honestly is still a pretty long time. So to get the most mileage out of the confidence we have banked, the choice will be to take asteroid exploration on breakneck and outer planet flyby on fast. Together, these two programs will equal 900,000 funds per year. This will be to our benefit, as this is the same amount the stations program was paying out, meaning we will maintain the income levels supplied to the space agency for the coming years. No, your eyes are not deceiving you. We are now launching a 2-booster variant of the Soyuz launch vehicle. You may be wondering, hey, doesn't the launch complexes only allow you to build at a minimum of 75% tonnage to prevent cheesing the system? And that is true. But I think it's a bit silly to not be able to launch a smaller Soyuz from this complex. So I did some quick editing to allow me to fly this guy. Let me know in the comments if you think what I'm doing is legit cheese, or if you find it justifiable. If the lot of you say it's fine, I might consider even launching some boosterless UR600s if payload sizes happen to work out. Getting back to this flight, this Progress 6 was in response to the insufficient nitrogen reserves aboard the Mir station. This launch vehicle wasn't properly tested before integrating, so you may notice that the service module has to perform some of the final orbital insertion. The resources packaged are no different than previous flights, but have been supplemented with a fair bit more nitrogen to make up for the difference, and then some. This kills some of the margins, but it will have enough propellant left to dock with the station at the very least. Since this resupply was barely a month out from the previous, the crew hasn't fully unloaded the earlier Progress vehicle. A few minutes are needed to transfer everything over, and then they send the Progress 5 on its way. After Progress 6 completed the docking, we can now confirm that the nitrogen levels are much more in line with the other resources on board, which at this point can support the station for well over a year. Which, coincidentally, will be how much longer Angelica and Grigori will remain aboard the station. We have a very busy mission schedule this year, and need to find some cost savings to meet the many launch windows in time. Also, this will be a good opportunity to test long-term endurance for a crew, giving us some insights on crew stress for when we plan to send cosmonauts to the Red Planet. Speaking of the Red Planet, we check back on the forgotten probe, Marsnik 4. The probe has been orbiting the planet for the last 11 months, but an opportunity has opened for a daytime landing near the North Pole. The flight path shows that we will fly over an icy portion of terrain, so that's the target location we will try to aim for. Unfortunately, it looks like we undershot the target zone by quite a bit. But hopefully the probe will land in a new biome to allow some more scientific collection. Timing of the heat shield release this time around was suboptimal. It caused the lander to tumble violently. This happens to not be much of an issue, as a couple blips of RCS and allowing some time to pass will allow it to settle down enough for the terminal descent. And we have another successful landing, with data streaming in showing it has landed in a new biome to boot. Moving forward a few weeks to the beginning of June, the scientists complete their research in spaceplane-era electronics. The great part about this specific tech node is that it applies a research speed bonus without any unlock cost, or the need to hire more researchers. Comparing the research queue from a few moments earlier, you can see that the schedule has been noticeably compressed, with the last technology completing in July 15, 1991, rather than July 25 of 92, shaving off an entire year. Now that the asteroid exploration program has been accepted, we are making a return to Vesta. The previous probe that made a visit was a simple flyby, but this time, we aim to capture into an orbit as well as land on the surface. This goal is a bit more challenging, as you can see by the use of the Proton to launch this mission. Nearly 5,000 Delta V will be required to get into an orbit around Vesta, which means we will need a similarly large transfer stage to get the probe on course for the asteroid. To help in this objective, the ejection, capture, and landing stages all utilize isogrid tanks, allowing for the mission to just barely fit on the 3-stage Proton. We had some commonality with the 3.6 meter diameter tanks previously used for the recent lunar landing. But for the smaller stages, a fair chunk of tooling credit investment was required. On course for Vesta, a small correction burn is performed. Then, with the craft separated, a few blips of RCS was used for just a bit more fine-tuning. Vesta 2 will be in transit for the next year and a half. But next up, we will be performing our first launch towards a gas giant. After operating for nearly 19 years, the R7 finally sees a major modernization for improved performance. Changing over from aluminum stringers to refined aluminum stringer tanks, the Soyuz sees a 12.5% payload improvement, capable now of taking 9 tons to low Earth orbit. To support this launch, however, the transfer stage will provide the final push to orbit, burning for a total of 25 seconds. Traveling to the gas giant requires some new technologies for both power and communications. And for that reason, the Jupiter 1 probe has been fitted with a 3-meter parabolic dish, as well as 200 watts of RTGs. Unlocking the RTG technology required nearly 160,000 unlock credits. So some financial planning had to be accounted for early in this year to make sure we hit the transfer window. The Americans may have already secured the milestone of being the first to reach Jupiter, but we will still be making an effort to shorten the transit time as best we can. Plotting a course with roughly 6,600 Delta V, we can expect a flyby of the Jovian system in roughly 680 days. A prograde flyby near Jupiter will give the probe a nice boost in speed, but that will not be put to any use, as we are not aiming for a gravity assist to reach Saturn. If we were going to do a Saturn flyby with this mission, the transit time from Jupiter to Saturn can expect to take nearly 5 years. It's a cheap way to perform the mission. But there's a different plan for Saturn, which will get us there much, much quicker. So to expand on that thought, you can see in the transfer planner that a direct launch to Saturn can be done with about 8,000 delta V and complete the transit in just over 3.5 years. The uprated Soyuz will not have the performance to do this mission, but if we take a look at our recently launched Spacecraft, we can have close to 10,000 delta V at our disposal if we were to launch on the Proton. A thing you learn quickly with RP-1 is that reuse of tooling and crafts is an easy way to save on cash. We will take this into account as we prepare for the Saturn window, which is quickly closing in at just 90 days away. September, we launch a new probe towards the Red Planet once again, though the difference exists only in the name, as Deimos 1 is a replacement of the earlier Phobos probe launched 2 years prior. A Deimos flyby and landing is considered an optional contract under the Mars Exploration Program, but the extra confidence in science makes it a worthwhile launch. After completing a minor course correction, we don't waste much time returning to the Space Center, as there is a much more important mission we must launch for the Mars program. If we are to close the Mars program, the capstone contract needed is a targeted rover with some waypoint navigation. Given that a transfer window to Saturn is butting up with this Mars window, the engineering teams made an effort to reduce costs for this specific mission wherever they found possible. Utilizing the isogrid transfer stage from the previous Vesta 2 launch, Marzakad 1 can be flown on the smaller 2-stage variant of the Proton launch vehicle. Once the transfer burn was successfully executed, some time was needed to carefully plan a correction burn, as we want to be as close as possible to intercepting the targeted landing site on arrival. The important factor here is that we match the latitude of the periapsis as close as possible. The longitudinal intercept can then be tweaked by changing the orbital period to fine-tune for the landing site. The course corrections will be much too difficult if we were to do it within Earth's sphere of influence. So Marzakad 1 will complete that burn a few months out, while it is transiting in interplanetary space. It's worth sharing that over the course of this episode, we have integrated the next crewed launch for the Moon. But the space agency had to prioritize funding for the multiple interplanetary launches that have presented themselves over the course of this year. Even doing so, the integration for the Saturn probe is running a bit behind the window and will need to be rushed for a hefty fee. We will miss the optimal window by 3 days, but the launch vehicle comes with a comfortable margin, so there's no need to worry about not having enough fuel. You might also notice that I marked down a Uranus launch window in the alarm queue. But based on the funds needed to get the UR600 rolled out, we will have to give Uranus a try later next year. Besides, I think my eyes were bigger than my stomach. The data rate out there is not that great, given our current technology level, and a few tracking station upgrades will be needed to get any usable science from a Uranus flyby. The transfer window is starting to close, but we managed to get this launch going for the Saturn I probe. To accomplish the mission needs, Saturn I reuses much of the Vesta 2 hardware, mixed together with the probe architecture from the recent Jupiter launch. Sticking with the theme of reuse, the second transfer stage uses the same avionics as Marzocod 1, as a control limit of 4 tons was needed for the stage. All these design choices allowed us to integrate this rocket without having to invest any additional unlock credit for tooling. The tricky part of this 2-stage transfer burn is that we need to assume that some correction burn will be required, as the Principia flight planner is calculating the maneuver based on the current active stage. With the primary burn completed, the correction course ends up needing close to 100 delta V. The probe can technically perform this with the onboard RCS, but we decide to use a second ignition on the transfer stage. From here, we will just point the antenna back at Earth and give Saturn I a gentle spin. The next time we will catch up with this probe will be in 1978. Now that all those probes are on their way, we can finally get back on track with the early lunar habitation program. The new RG-1 configurated UR600 takes flight on the 30th of October. The earlier lunar station mission utilized a Soyuz for the crew, but that implementation was more of a temporary solution. For all remaining flights, the plan will be to launch aboard a newly developed lunar TKS. The reason behind this was twofold. For one, the TKS will serve as both the resupply vehicle as well as a crew carrier, allowing consolidation of efforts into a single launch rather than multiple. And second, in the event that a rendezvous is not achievable due to incorrect planning or hardware failures, the lunar TKS can still operate as a standalone lunar station, given that it contains the necessary lunar experiment on board, as well as 160 days worth of research payload and supplies. You may have noticed the strange bulbous attachment at the back of the TKS. And that little guy is a new avionics unit with an integrated passageway to allow control for up to 55 tons. Due to a lack of foresight, the lunar station was originally launched with just 30 tons of avionics control. If we were to dock the TKS to the station in its current configuration, there would be a loss of control, sending the station with the cosmonauts on board into a tumble. After 2 years and 2 months being left uninhabited and derelict, the depressurized station finally will support the next round of crew rotations. But given this long time left unchecked, we must approach with caution. Not wanting to take any risks, Anatoly Klemushin sets out on an EVA to give the station a once-over, just to make sure it is safe for him and the team to dock. From the outside, nothing appears to be damaged or shows signs of tampering. He then approaches the windows to try to take a look inside for any squatters, be it extraterrestrial or from another nation. Everything seems to be in order, so he heads on back to the TKS, and then they initiate the final approach for docking. The team will have to slowly divert nitrogen back into the station before they open their hatches. The engineers back at Baikonur tried to pack extra nitrogen to account for having to refill the station. But even so, they calculated a bit too short. The Kerbalism estimate shows 219 days of nitrogen available, while the other resources we have on board allow for a total of 300. Realistically, if a station were left this long unoccupied, it very likely would need to be scuttled due to lack of upkeep and irreparable damages. There are even talks about implementing station degradation in some future releases for Realism Overhaul. Let me know in the comments if you think we should abandon this lunar station for a new one. In hindsight, this station is already on the small side and doesn't have the best resource capacity for nitrogen reserves, though that problem could be solved if we utilize Kerbal attachment system on a later mission. In the meantime, Anatoly Klemushin, Vasily Melikov, and Alexandra Lasheva will be performing the long-duration lunar orbit crew science for the next 3 to 9 months. They will have to play it by ear, keeping an eye on their stress levels and looking out for any signs of impending failure aboard the lunar station. For the remainder of the year, we will just be warping forward in time so that funding can build back up as we prepare for the first lunar base. Though checking in on our cosmonauts aboard the Mir, they are starting to get a bit stir-crazy as they are nearing 2 years living alone in space. All this extra station management and investment does have me wonder if we should continue upkeeping the Mir, or if we should deorbit the station and redirect that funding back to help us out for the crewed lunar habitation efforts. Drop a comment below if you have any thoughts. And if there's a popular opinion, I will follow the voice of the people. December 3rd, we achieve another research milestone as Spaceplane's era material science is completed. This is a fairly significant technology, as engineering efficiencies are applied to all existing and new launch complexes. This contributes to both faster build times as well as cost savings for integration. Additionally, we now have unlocked IsoGrid fairings. With a one-time investment of 45,000 funds, we can go back to any of our existing crafts and reduce material densities for structures and fairings. It may seem insignificant at first, but this will certainly add up and provide a bit more payload performance. To close out the year, the recently recruited cosmonauts complete their proficiency training on Christmas Eve. They are now just one training away from going on their first mission, but that will be for the next episode. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.